I destroyed my ex-boyfriend's Lego sets and gave him 1 week to move out after he threw away my teddy bear. And before anyone says I overreacted, let me tell you exactly what that bear was. My grandma gave it to me the summer I turned 7. She'd just been diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, and she knew even then that she wasn't going to beat it. She didn't sit me down and explain any of that. She just handed me this little brown bear with a red ribbon around its neck and told me his name was Button. She said whenever I missed her, I could talk to Button and he'd pass the message along. Then she showed me the secret. There was a small panel on his back with a button sewn into it. She pressed it and I heard her voice come out. She'd recorded herself saying, "I love you more than every star in the sky and every fish in the sea. Don't you ever forget that." I must have pressed that button 10,000 times over the years. She passed 8 months after she gave him to me. I was at school when it happened. My mom picked me up early, and I didn't fully understand what was happening until I got home and squeezed Button in my bed that night and heard her voice come out and just completely fell apart. That was the moment it hit me. That voice was the only piece of her I had left. I carried that bear everywhere for years. He came to school in my backpack. He went to every cheer competition I had in high school. He sat on every college dorm desk I ever had. He was missing an eye and one of his arms had been reattached twice, and the fur on his left side was completely worn down from how many times I held him. He looked rough. I knew he looked rough. I didn't care. My ex-boyfriend, knew all of this. I told him about Button on our second date. He watched me squeeze that bear and cry on my grandma's death anniversary every single year we were together. 3 years. He knew exactly what that bear meant. We moved in together about 8 months ago. We had separate bedrooms which worked perfectly for us. I got to keep my space the way I wanted it. He got his, and we still spent every night together. It was genuinely a good setup. I had Button on my bed where he'd been for the past 18 years. 2 days ago, I came home from running errands and went to my room and Button wasn't on my bed. I figured I'd moved him without thinking. I checked my nightstand, my closet, under the bed. Nothing. I started getting a weird feeling in my stomach and went through the whole apartment. Living room, bathroom, kitchen. I was opening cabinet doors. I was checking behind furniture. My hands were shaking. My boyfriend was on the couch the entire time watching me do this. Just watching. Didn't ask what I was looking for. Didn't offer to help. Just sat there. I finally stopped in the middle of the living room and asked him directly if he'd seen Button. He muted the TV, looked at me for a second, then said, completely flat. I threw it out. It was disgusting. The stuffing was coming out and it smelled weird and I was tired of looking at it every time I walked past your room. I didn't yell. I didn't say anything. I just stood there. He turned the TV back on. Something shifted in me. I walked down the hall to his bedroom. He had an entire wall dedicated to his Lego sets, built and displayed on these custom shelves he was so proud of. The Millennium Falcon, a massive Hogwarts castle, the Botanical Garden set, a Eiffel Tower build he'd spent 3 weekends on, probably 60 sets total, thousands of dollars, hundreds of hours. I stood there looking at all of it. Then I started sweeping. I went shelf by shelf with both arms. Sets hit the floor and exploded into thousands of pieces. I grabbed the Millennium Falcon and threw it against the wall. I opened his window and threw pieces out into the yard. I dumped 2 sets directly into the bathroom trash can and buried them under everything else. He came running in screaming, grabbed my arm, kept yelling about how much those cost, how long he worked on them, how I was destroying something he paid for with his own money. I pulled my arm back and looked at him and said, "That's exactly how I felt 20 minutes ago." Then I told him he had 1 week to get his things out of my apartment. He called me insane, called me a child, said I was blowing up 3 years over a teddy bear like it was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever heard. I told him to be out by Sunday and walked back to my room and closed the door. Since then, he's called me 7 times, sent a wall of texts saying he'll replace Button, saying we can work through this, saying I'm letting my emotions make a decision I'll regret. He cannot replace Button. That recording was made once, by someone who is gone. He did not throw away a worn-out stuffed animal. He threw away the last place my grandmother's voice existed in the world, and he watched me look for it for an hour. That's the part I can't get past. He sat on that couch and watched me panic and said nothing. So yeah, his Legos are in pieces, he's got 4 days left, and I have nothing left to say to him.